Welcome to Awkward History Lecture with Mr. Truen and
Mr. Summers.
And now it's awkward time. So today we're talking about labor unions, where they came from, specifically in America. Starting with the background, a lot of the new factories required a lot of workers, but there were plenty of people who wanted to be hired. So thousands of workers, especially immigrants who had recently arrived in the United States, needed work to survive.
Even children were working. Families expected children to contribute to the household income. Children as young as 5 or 6 were sent to work in factories and in the mines that provided coal to keep the machines running. Some factory owners hired entire families.
Men, women, and children worked 10, 12, and even 16-hour days. To put that in perspective, the usual workday now is an 8-hour day. They only stopped for a short time to eat. Saturday was just another workday for them. In some workplaces, the only days that employees didn't work were Independence Day and Christmas. Even though people worked long and hard, their wages were very, very low. And then on the graphic here, it is a list of hours at a textile mill in Lowell, Massachusetts. It might be a little difficult for you to read, but they are required to show up to work around 6 a.m. and they leave around 6:30. And it has a list of morning and dinner bells, so they are there for their entire day.
Men almost always earned more than women. Factory owners sought female employees because they could pay them much less than men. They assumed that men needed the income to support their families, while women used their income to create a dowry for when they got married or to supplement their husband's income.
Workers could be so easily replaced that factory owners did not give much attention to the health or safety of their workers. Thousands of workers were killed during doing their jobs each year. Many more were injured. There was no insurance to pay for medical expenses or to provide an income when a worker was sick or died. An example here, in the left-hand shot is a younger man who has lost a leg at work, and in the right-hand corner is an entire family that is supported, and you can see the guy over the bed frame there just coming home from work, and look at how small their residence is. Like, that is the front door, and their house is a single bedroom with bed, and all those people live there.
Workers went to work even if they were tired or not feeling well. They didn't have sick days. If they didn't show up for work, they could probably be fired. Workers knew they also might lose their job if they complained about how they were being treated by their employers. They feared backlash, being blacklisted or facing backlash, which meant other employers would refuse to hire them as well. There were no unemployment checks to help the unemployed get by until they found other work.
Factories could be very crowded. Factory owners let workers do some jobs at home, but children often worked alongside their parents at home. They would do simple tasks such as removing extra threads or putting together small pieces. Older children carried finished goods to the factories.
An increasing number of workers began to think that organizing themselves into unions might be a good idea. A union is a group of workers who join together to try to get more pay and improve their working conditions. Union leaders sit down with employers and talk about pay, working conditions, and other problems. This is called collective bargaining. You might have heard that in sports as well. Sometimes, just talking was enough to reach an agreement that made life better for the workers.
When workers and their bosses couldn't work out their differences, some workers chose to go on strike. This means that workers stop working to show an employer that they aren't satisfied with some part of their job and they want a change. This wasn't easy. Remember that workers could be fined if they complained. The striking workers had no pay while they were waiting for their employer to give them what they want. Sometimes workers and employers were so angry that people would get hurt and even killed.
As the number of trade unions grew, their members began to hold parades and other events to draw attention to the importance of workers and how poorly they were being treated. In May of 1882, an idea was proposed to New York's Central Labor Union, the CLU, to hold a monster labor festival in New York City. The person usually given credit for this idea was Peter McGuire, a founder of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters and Joiners of America. Another person that historians say may have proposed a special day was Matthew McGuire, a New Jersey machinist and secretary of the CLU. Not a lot is known about McGuire's contributions to the event other than that he was a key organizer who sent out the invitations. No matter who suggested it first, the CLU thought honoring American workers with their own day was a good idea. It would give workers a day off, bring public attention to difficult working conditions, and help demonstrate organized labor strength and unity.
The Central Labor Union selected September 5th, 1882 for the labor celebration because it was halfway between Independence Day and Thanksgiving. They knew the weather would also still be warm. Few, if any, workers were given the day off. Most were warned against marching with the threat of being fired. When the parade began, there were only a few hundred marchers, accompanied by a band and horse-drawn wagons. Matthew McGuire rode near the front of the parade. As they proceeded along the route, more workers joined in. Eventually, there were 20,000 people marching. About 250,000 people turned out to watch.
Later in the day, nearly 50,000 people gathered in a park for picnics, speeches, dancing, concerts, and fireworks. Peter McGuire of the Carpenters Union was one of many speakers.
The CIU urged others to follow the example of New York and celebrate a working men's holiday. In 1887, Oregon became the first state to establish an official Labor Day. By 1893, more than half of the states were observing one day or another. A bill to establish a federal holiday was passed in Congress in June 1894. President Grover Cleveland signed the bill soon afterward, designating the first Monday in September as Labor Day. Just 1 month later, in July 1894, Canada established its own official Labor Day.
In 1889, an international group of socialists and workers who were meeting in Paris, France, decided to show their support for the United States labor movement, particularly its demands for an 8-hour workday. They chose May 1st, 1890 for their event. Afterward, the first day of May became a Labor Day holiday in many other countries. Sometimes it's called International Workers' Day.
So that is all we have for you for Awkward History Lecture. If you have any questions, we'll always talk about it in class. Okay, I guess goodbye. Just close this out. Stop listening. This is weird.